I'm just not a fan of The Shining. It just doesn't do it for me. I've tried to read the book, and the book I'm definitely going to give another shot to, because I tried to read it when I was super young, because that's how I got into a lot of Stephen King, is that I approached so much of it when I was really, really on the younger side. And The Shining, as a kid, I remember like always seeing bits and pieces of it, and I think that I mythologized it, or mythologized it, whatever the word's going to be. I made it a mythology myself from seeing these bits and pieces, because I do remember a lot of people talking about The Shining. Like, I could not tell you a single conversation, but I do remember as a kid remembering hearing people talk about it as if it was, again, one of the scariest movies of all time. That's just this amazing, amazing film. And, you know, I knew all the things about it growing up, because everybody does that with horror movies. At least back in the 80s and the 90s, that's what you did when you were growing up. Like, you never saw it, but you knew enough about the movie. You knew the "come play with us, Danny," and room 217 and the maze and the axe and the "here's Johnny." And you know all of that already. But you still haven't really seen the film. And the problem I had with The Shining, and if you check out my review of the 1997 miniseries, you can kind of see here, you know, more of the issues I had with the original version versus the 97 miniseries. But the problem I had is just, it's not that interesting of a film. And no, I don't need there to be jump scares or a bunch of deaths or things like that, honestly. And I love Stephen King. It's not a knock on Stephen King. It's not a knock on Stanley Kubrick, who's a fantastic filmmaker, or was a fantastic filmmaker. It's not a knock on Shelley Duvall or Jack Nicholson or anything like that. Like, not knocking any of those. It's just the finished product of The Shining didn't work for me. It's still not something that I found myself that interested in, which is kind of weird to think that a movie like Doctor Sleep can come around and I'm totally, totally into that for certain. Because Doctor Sleep, if this is your first time hearing about it, is the follow-up to The Shining, both in book form and in movie form. This is your sequel to The Shining if you ever want to see what happened next. Now, again, I've only read a little bit of the book there, so I can't really talk to that. Talk about the connections between The Shining's the movie, the TV series, and the book, and you can watch that review anyway. But with Doctor Sleep, I definitely have never read that book, so I can't get into it. So my approach here, just to kind of get this out of the way from the jump, is that I'm gonna approach this as a sequel to The Shining, as it is, and we're just gonna go with it off of that. There won't be any spoilers because this doesn't fall within the 10-year rule, so y'all are still safe on that. But the idea of Doctor Sleep follows Danny 30 years later, who has been trying to live a life away from what he encountered as a kid at the Overlook Hotel. So Danny has been dealing with alcoholism. He's been dealing with kind of trying to protect himself as he's grown up, because it's not like life just ended after the events of The Shining were done. A lot of the ghosts that hunted Danny and his family back in the Overlook have followed him to where him and his mom have now moved to and have been trying to live their life. And some of the film deals with Danny still having to put, so to speak, put those ghosts away, to grow up and to move on to more adult things. And it's a great theme because we do get to see that Danny is still he's still dealing with so much trauma, so much PTSD from the events of the Overlook, but he's actually still talking to Dick Halloran as well too, who's played by Scatman Carruthers in the original film, who's still trying to give him an idea of how life works and what to do in life. And so we get to see a few of their meetings over the course of this movie, and again, this after The Shining, and Halloran telling him basically how he can effectively trap these ghosts who have still followed Danny from the Overlook. And at first, we don't really know whether or not this is a physical thing, because if you've seen the original Shining, I honestly do think that it's incredibly, incredibly easy to look at like the ghosts that were in the original film and say, well, these are just like manifestations of what's going on in your head. This has nothing actually to do with like an actual creature, an actual being that could hurt you. And one of the great things Dr. Sleep does is it pretty much confirms for us that that wasn't the case. That all of these ghosts who were haunting the Overlook Hotel and causing so many problems for the Torrance family, that they were real. They were really feeding off of this family, and that they were in some actual danger. And that leaving, even though Jack is dead and the boiler is cold right now, even though all of that is happening right now, there's still the issue of if these ghosts are following you, you are still absolutely able to be hurt by these ghosts. They can absolutely still cause you pain and cause you harm. And I think that that's great for them to confirm that, because for some of us who have not, like, we're not, Shining enthusiasts, I think that question was always there about whether are they just seeing this shit, is this actually happening, because it's a Stephen King tale. And it's kind of like, all the stuff like I always use It as a great example, because that's one of my absolute favorites, and it's easy to explain a lot of the stuff that's going on. And we know that a lot of what the kids are seeing, like, yeah, these are manifestations in It, but they can still physically hurt these children and these adults in that story. And in The Shining, that's not made explicitly clear, but Dr. Sleep, again, confirms that that's the case. And so not only is Danny now having to deal with these ghosts that have followed him from the Overlook, and thankfully Dick Hallorann has showed him how to trap these ghosts, how to stop them from interfering in your life, but now there's something new on the horizon that stands to put Danny as well as a number of other people in danger as well, and that is the True Knot. Now, the True Knot are a group of psychics who live their life roaming the country, feasting off the steam of those with the Shining. Now, the Shining is that psychic ability. You can move things, you can talk to people, you can project images and thoughts, and you have all these powers with it. It's telekinesis amongst other things. But the thing is that the True Knot feeds on that, and the way to release this steam is by, unfortunately, torturing and killing those who have the Shining. And usually that steam is a lot stronger in children. And so while Danny Torrance might be one of the strongest people out there who have the shine, there are others out there, and the True Knot is searching for them. And that's really one of the biggest cruxes of Dr. Sleep, is the True Knot sets their sights on this girl, Abra, who has reached out to Danny through The Shining, basically, and has told him about everything that she's seen and what's going on, and how Danny continues to try to avoid that and ignore it and not be involved in any of that at all, until Dick brings it to his attention again that Abra's gonna need his help, because if he doesn't help Abra, no one will help her, and then the True Knot won't just stop with her. And it's fantastic, because one thing that Stephen King does so well in his stories is that most of the time it's not just a supernatural occurrence that's going on that's plaguing our protagonists. Usually there's something else in the background as well too, whether it's a parent, whether it's a bully, whether it's just somebody or something else. And in this, we are still dealing with the ghost of the Overlook haunting Danny, and if those ghosts find out about anybody else with a Shining, they're after them as well too. But the True Knot is really, really where where a lot of this trouble is at, because they are the physical danger of what's going on in the world. Because again, they're after anybody with shine. And unfortunately, we get to see in rather graphic detail the way that they get that shine out of their victims. And, Stephen King's never been one to shy away from brutality and violence, and I think it's even better that Mike Flanagan, who y'all know from Netflix, that's right, we're talking all of the awesome Netflix shows. So perhaps you've seen The Haunting of Hill House, or The Haunting of Bly Manor, or Midnight Mask, or he's got other things coming up as well too. But Mike Flanagan is the one who brought us Dr. Sleep, and I don't want to say that he has a knack for torturing little kids, but man, you'd be surprised. Like, you would say that's not something he screws up at, is torturing little kids in his work now. But not only that, though, because it's not about just the physical torture and the physical scares that Danny and some of these other children go through in Doctor Sleep, but it's that lasting trauma as well too. And Doctor Sleep, I haven't talked to anybody at all who has seen this and didn't enjoy it. It didn't set the box office on fire, but its exploration of PTSD and generational trauma and generational curses and how that gets passed down. And now that we all have a bit of a better understanding about how things like that work, it's such a powerful tale because Danny is taking so many of those terrible things that Jack Nicholson had in the first film, and he's seen it. You know, his dad has tried to kill him, literally has tried to murder him, and he's trying to distance himself as far away from all that as possible. But by doing that, he hasn't really done the work to deal with it. And I love the fact that so much of this is about Danny in rehab and dealing with his alcoholism, because you know, Jack was an alcoholic because of so many things in his life, and he had that darkness inside of him as well. And going to the Overlook, the whole idea was, you know, like, will these demons overtake him? And they did, unfortunately, and that caused him to go homicidal and try to kill his wife and his son as well. And the alcohol was really just kind of like a gateway to that. The alcohol didn't directly cause it, it was just a gateway to it, one that he unfortunately lost his fight with. And Danny's also dealing with alcoholism, and he uses it as a way to escape his shine because he doesn't want it. From all the bad memories he had as a kid, you know, he told himself that if he doesn't use it, that's the safer bet, because the people that are looking for, like him and for Abra, if he doesn't use this shine, they don't know he's out there, and he doesn't have to worry about anything else. But after going through pretty much rock bottom, and that's what we're led to, is that we get to see Danny's rock bottom. A new friend that he meets decides that he's going to help Danny find his way, and Danny does get clean. And in one of the most emotional parts of the movie, and it's such an amazing part, and Ewan McGregor just sells it so well. Getting emotional. There's a part to where Danny is sharing at at an AA meeting, and he's talking about how his dad at this one point stood up here with a chip, 5-month chip, and he must have been so happy to get that chip, and that was before everything just went so wrong, and that his dad had a lot of bad to him, but he also had a lot of good, and he wanted to do good for Danny and their family, and how just unfortunately he wasn't able to get there, but he's still fighting. And I love that because we slowly get to see Danny regain not even just his humanity, but regain a part of himself. Because as a kid in the original Shining, you know, we're not given that much on Danny. You know, he's a 6-year-old kid. You know, he's just a child, and all this shit is happening to him. And so we're left to fill in a lot of those blanks with Dr. Sleep. And Dr. Sleep does such a great job of showing us how Danny's trauma has affected him, and how he's so careful about the relationships that he engages in and the people that he chooses to talk to. And, you know, the name Dr. Sleep comes from, he begins working as an orderly at a retirement home. And he gets that name because he eventually starts visiting these patients to where they're going to die very shortly. And there's some kind of supernatural element there, because there's this cat that basically leads Danny to the patients that are dying, and he's able to show these people, he's able to keep them calm, be able to show them the best things about their lives and give them some peace as they slowly pass away. And that's where the name 100% comes from, and it's such a great fitting name with it as well too, because Danny really is the Dr. Sleep. And Abra, who who is played by Kylie Curran, it does such an amazing job, because she's I don't even know the way to put this there. Like, because she's not Danny. She has this shining. She has all this power. But the difference between her and Danny is that she's in a much better place. You know, it shows that she has a happy family, a family that might not understand her, but it's a happy family nevertheless. And she's living a very different life than Danny Torrance did. And not only that, but now she has this guidance from somebody who knows exactly what she's going through and what she's dealing with. And that's powerful because Danny didn't have that. And so he's able to pass on the knowledge that he received onto somebody else and really help them. And that makes them family. And it's such a strong connection to the point to where when Abra is calling Danny, you know, her Uncle Dan, there's a reason for that. Like, it's not just, it's not necessarily a kid being a kid. Part of that is that, but it's because there really is that connection between Abra and Danny and this Shining. And the Shining connects so many people. Now, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Rebecca Ferguson, who a lot of you probably know from Mission Impossible, who plays Rose the Hat, the leader of the True Knot, who is just absolutely terrifying. And it's interesting because all I've seen Rebecca Ferguson in have been in roles to where she's the good guy or she's the person helping our protagonist out. And so to go from all these very positive, uplifting, happy roles to this role to where she's murdering children or trying to murder children, it's just ridiculous. And again, like, we look at this True Knot and we know, like, okay, like, simply put, if you're murdering kids, there's nothing good about that. And you have this entire tribe of psychic vampires, which is what the True Knot are. They're basically psychic vampires who, they're not immortal, but they can live a long, 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 long life by taking that shining from all those people who are gifted with it. And Rose is the head of that, and she is just absolutely terrifying because of the things that she will do to get what she wants. There is no compromise, and it doesn't matter who the victims are at all. She doesn't care. What matters to her is her family, the True Knot, and keeping them safe and healthy and just in the best possible health that they possibly could be. And Rebecca Ferguson does amazing with this role to where you just can't help but be afraid that for everything that Danny and Abra are able to throw at her and the rest of the True Knot, Rose is always just one step ahead. And again, whether it's torturing kids or at the towards the end of the film, to where we get to our climax and Rose gets to see the same terrors that Danny has been through in his life. Rose is just a powerful, powerful figure, and Rebecca Ferguson just commands that presence on screen. Like, this was a great choice for Rose the Hat because you almost want to just believe everything she says. You have to believe everything she says because she just has that power in her. But it stinks because it's all for naught. The True Knot. I had to make that dumb joke. There are absolutely scares in this film for sure. It's easily a better movie to me than than The Shining because there's so much more happening in Dr. Sleep. And while I don't need a physical villain, I just think the idea of having the True Knot in this works better as having that physical villain, that physical bad guy, versus what we had for Jack Torrance in the original Shining. It just works better for me. And not only that, but the monsters of the Overlook are actually made to be far more menacing than the way they are presented in the original film. We have more characterization, more character development of characters like Danny and characters like Wendy as well too. And the new characters that we get are just welcome additions to this already established story. Now, it's a long one for sure. You know, the theatrical version is 2.5 hours, whereas the director's cut is 3 hours. So it is going to take up a chunk of change to get through this film for sure. But it's absolutely worth it, though. It's absolutely worth the watch because it's an amazing story. And in my opinion, it's one of the best Stephen King adaptations that has been done. And if you liked Mike Flanagan, you know what you're in for. It's a great, great piece that, again, like I mentioned, highlights emotional trauma and generational pain so well. And this is a movie that I think a lot of us probably shouldn't have watched during the pandemic, but if you did, you probably worked out a lot within yourself watching this too. Great cast, like we mentioned. definitely you want to go and check out Dr. Sleep. Hey everybody, I appreciate you checking out this video, whether it was a review, whether it was a new episode, whether it was an unboxing, an interview, or whatever else. I want to remind you can check out my separate reviews also on my YouTube page, and new full episodes go up every Wednesday night on YouTube at 8:30 p.m. Mountain Standard Time and on your favorite podcasting platforms at 8 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, like, and share. My name is T. We've been talking scary movies. Stay scared.